Hello, my name is Jack Heritage. I'm a practical karate instructor from the Cotswolds.
And I am Pat Woodward, amateur enthusiast and practitioner in a number of different martial arts styles.
And welcome back to the Armchair Combatives podcast.
Right. Nice to get back in the studio with you, Jack.
Absolutely, always a fun one.
It's been good. I've got a little bit of a divisive one for us today.
Oh, go on.
But
what are we talking about?
before I get into it, we'll do the proclivities.
Oh, we don't have to do that, do we?
We do the normal.
Absolutely.
So yeah, as always, obviously, if you are enjoying the podcast, please feel free to get on your podcast platform of choice and as many others as you can be bothered to go to in your precious free time. Please give us 5 stars. Please give us a comment. Any and all interaction with the podcast is a bonus. You don't need to give us anything extraordinary information. Tell you what's your favourite kind of woolly animal? Go for that one this week. Please do get involved. The actual comment itself isn't good. It's just any interaction drives us up that chart, and the higher we get, the more content we're able to produce at a faster rate. It's better for everyone all around. So, diving straight into the episode itself.
What are we talking about, Pat?
You got a question, divisive question. Is there such a thing as a bad student?
Yes. Right, thanks for coming, guys.
Right, that was the episode. That was episode 3 of the Armchair Combatives podcast. You heard it first.
You know what? That's a really good question, and this is definitely something that is not as funny enough. It's not as simple cut as yes or no. I think my initial thought is that I've been an instructor at my own clubs for Jesus. It's got to be nearly 7 years.
Wow.
It's nearly 7 years because I started my first club end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So I'm on this is my 7th year.
You have students that weren't alive when you started teaching. Is that...
Oh no, you can't say that. Legitimately,
you have students that were not even born when you started teaching instruction.
Do you not? This is a bit of a side note, and we will actually talk about the topic because I know that's what you guys are here for. But as an instructor,
sorry to just wildly derail Jack.
It's
for
kind.
5 minutes.
I kind of am just a bit pissed off right now. it's crazy. I remember when we started doing some of the membership forms and stuff, just to kind of get the details that we needed and what have you. It's get people to write down date of birth and stuff, or the student's date of birth, and the parents would be filling it out for their kids. And you look at the date of birth, and it was fucking 2019 or 2020, and I'm looking at it, and I'm just going
nuts.
Dude, it sounds so fucking stupid. I know that's a concept of time. I get that, but my brain just can't comprehend that when I was starting teaching my own clubs, you were still swimming in your dad's ballsack. I just find it really hard.
That's a crazy way to phrase it.
That is a crazy way
to phrase it.
Just a disclaimer: this show is not suitable for kids.
No, if you are okay, I'm gonna put it out there. I drive a 2017 Kia Rio. If you are younger than my car, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. I'm gonna put that out there. Don't get me wrong. We're not sponsored by Kia. Kia, if you're listening, we will happily take a sponsorship. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think
is martial arts driving you crazy? Well, I know how we can get there quicker. Get a Kia.
Kia Rio.
Kia Rio. Right. On that note, okay, so is there such thing as a bad student? Now, obviously, I'm approaching this as an instructor. Obviously, you've done your own teaching of different things in your time, Pat. But for the most part, you've spent most of that time as a student or a senior student and stuff along those lines.
Yeah, but in terms of kind of the full length of my kind of martial arts journey, very recently have I started teaching.
So the interesting thing would be to kind of get your view based on the fact of you're coming at this from I'm having to train with this motherfucker, or from my point of view, which is I'm having to train this motherfucker. So I think there is such thing as a bad student. However, 9 times out of 10, they are a bad student because the teacher is not doing their job properly?
See, so in a weird way, I agree and then I disagree. I agree that there is such a thing as a bad student. I agree that in some cases it's the teacher. But not even in those cases, it's not even that the teacher's not necessarily doing their job. I think it's a very, this is why I wanted it, because there's so many different factors to consider. So
Yes.
okay, so if you take it into, say, you have a student who is, I mean, let's say belligerent kid, right?
Not familiar with that.
Okay, let's say aggressive little shitbag.
Yeah, I've got plenty of them.
Okay, so there we go. Do not
Okay.
kids, you're not supposed to be listening, go to bed. So okay, you have the thing. There's plenty of kids that I've been in classes with. There's plenty of kids that I have been part of training. In terms of like, I know I've been asked to help out with your kids class in the past.
Yeah.
I've been asked to help out with there have been kids in classes that I've been working on when we have like mixed groups.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's kind of you end up teaching the kid because that's just how the rotation works. It happens. And I think one of the most honest things about kids is you can tell immediately which of the kids in your class want to be there and which of the kids in your class have been told to be there.
100%. And we see this all the time.
100%. When I was recently training before I joined on with what would become CKS.
Yeah.
I did train with a father-son duo, I guess you could put it.
Sure.
And like the dad was invested, and he freely admitted that he brought his kid along to try and get some of that initial young lad angst out of his. I think the kid was like 6 or 7. Really not a very, really a child, small child.
Yeah.
You could just tell that 9 times out of 10, the kid just did not want to fucking be there.
Yeah.
And it was never, like, to be fair, the dad was very good at being like, I guess bribing the kid in certain ways of like, he wasn't there on the mat, like, if you be good in class, we can go for ice cream. But the kid was very good about like, look, I don't ask much of you. I'm trying, this is for your benefit as much as it's for mine. And he was, like, great dad. And it was a case of, the dad certainly wasn't failing. The teacher wasn't failing. The simple fact of the matter was the kid hadn't decided to be there.
Yeah.
That made him, in certain instances, a bad student. Because how are you supposed to teach somebody that doesn't want to learn?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I totally agree.
Again, there's so many different examples, and I'm sure people at home have their own examples. If you can promise it doesn't turn into a bitch fest in the comments, please feel free to get in touch with your own examples when this episode does go live.
Yeah.
But it's that thing of like, you have a student who wants to come along, wants to be confident, wants to get involved, but their physical ability might not be there for reasons outside of their control. It's kind of, it's a case of, if you have somebody who they turn up, they could be full of beans, but if they have physical limitations, if they're recovering from an injury, if they have pre-existing conditions, and they, just because they can't do a head height roundhouse kick, does that make them a bad student? I don't think so. It's very much a case of, it's an attitude thing in immediate. I think like the immediate thing of like, I guess if we're going to kind of shoot almost to the end of the episode and go, what makes a bad student? My immediate one would be attitude. Yeah. Because you can have somebody who's fit and healthy and flexible and ready to learn. If they don't want to learn from you, they won't. That's as simple as it comes. And if you have somebody who is, they might not be physically there. They might be over or underweight. They might be asthmatic, so they can't do 3-minute rounds without needing to take their inhaler, that kind of thing, they have pre-existing health conditions, POTS, PICOs, these kinds of conditions that really affect predominantly female, students, that kind of thing. These kinds of chronic diseases that we're learning so much more about every day. They can have all the will and the drive and the good attitude in the world, but they're not going to progress as fast as somebody who's, for lack of a better word, fit and able. Does that make them a bad student? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think it's a thing of, I'm ashamed to say, purely for the instance of the conversation, I know that there's people I've trained with in the past that I'm like, I just can't be paired with this person today.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a mindset where they have their specific way of learning, they have their specific reasons for being here. I'm here to learn. I want to get a sweat on. I want to hit the bag or the pad or I want to spar. I want to learn something today.
Yeah.
And I feel like, not that this is actually the case, but more in the sense of, if I, quote unquote, have to train with this person today, I'm not in a good enough mood to not feel like I'm dragging them along, and I'm sacrificing my time for them.
Yeah. And I think this is this bleeds into adult classes too, right? It's, this isn't just a kid only issue. You can be a bad student as an adult for like different reasons, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. So I really, I think I've got a few more things to kind of add on to what you're saying about, like, especially with the kids and stuff, because we do see the issue of like kids being brought in that they're often like told, you're going to this because, you need to learn discipline, or you need to learn some self-confidence and stuff like that. And, there are some really valid reasons why the parents think it's going to be a good thing to bring the kid in. But I'm a big proponent of this. Martial arts does not teach you discipline. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because it can teach you discipline. It doesn't inherently teach you. Doesn't naturally teach, and the reason it doesn't is because the only people it teaches discipline to are for the people that actually fucking like doing martial arts. Okay, because they found something they really enjoy, and because they enjoy it, they put more time and effort into it. Inherently, they are becoming more disciplined in the fact that they are training all the time, and they want to progress, they want to learn. I have kids that do that. I have kids that turn up every week, and they give me their absolute all. Okay, they listen to my my criticisms. They're there for. I don't just criticize, by the way. They listen to when and when I've said, "Oh, you did that really well," and they're happy about their progress, and they're constantly working towards that next goal. I equally have kids though that are potentially having issues at school where they might be getting in trouble. They have been told by the parents they need to sort out this behaviour. The parents don't really know what to do, so they put them into something like martial arts because they think it's going to magically cure their kid of being naughty, or cure their kid of messing around at school, or help them in other ways. And it can, if the kid comes into that class and goes, I really like this, and I like Jack, I like the way he teaches, and I want to listen to him and I want to get better at it. And for some people that is a cure. It's a way of beginning to discipline them more, or get them into a better frame of mind because they've found something that they love. However, on the opposite side of that, you've potentially now got a kid that really struggles with their focus, or isn't really interested in anything, likes messing around, doesn't have much self-discipline, coming into a class in which they've been pushed by their parents. They've had no say over whether they actually want to do it. They come into that class, they realise, don't really enjoy this either. Mum and Dad aren't going to let me stop. Therefore, I'm just going to do what I want. And the problem with those students, like you say, it becomes an issue for other students, and it becomes distractive and stuff like that. So
it becomes a waste of their time.
It becomes a waste of their time as much as it is mine. So, as you'll probably know, because I sometimes talk about it, the way that I run the school is that if your kid's being disruptive and they're getting to a point where I feel like I've used up all my bag of tricks to help them, I will often speak to the parents and go, listen, this is an issue. I don't think your kid actually wants to be here. And from there, we look at options for going, like, do you think this is a right fit for them? Or is there going to be something else that's going to be better for them?
I was going to link in with, have you ever asked a parent to take a kid out of the school?
Pretty
but
much.
it's kind of, and I weirdly want to kind of addendum that into, have you ever been in a situation where you've asked an adult member of the class, you've kind of had the conversation of like, look, I don't feel like you're getting what you want out of this class, and if so, was it kind of just I think we should part ways, or I can put you in touch with these guys, or I can suggest you do this? Have you ever been in that situation before?
The kids definitely so. There was a kid that used to train with us a while ago, and they didn't really. I don't think they didn't like all of the aspects of what we were doing.
Okay.
So there were certain things they enjoyed, like they enjoyed the games we played, but they didn't like it as soon as we started going into technique, trying to improve their skill set. It was more so. So, as an example, just so you understand what I'm trying to say as the viewers, we play certain games like Stuck in the Mud. However, we play it in a way where you're only allowed to tag the back of the person to try and get kids to think about, first of all, their awareness skills, but also making sure you're always facing potential threats as they're coming in. That is, it's not a perfect drill for self-defense, but it teaches some basic skills.
It's a kid's game that starts you on the path, isn't it?
Exactly, and then from there we might bleed into some framing and fencing, not fencing, defense for anybody that's familiar with Jeff Thompson's work. Fence drills of keeping people at distance, using their hands as a way of maintaining that range, etc. But the thing is, he would enjoy the games, but as soon as we started breaking it down into other things, it would become, oh, this is boring. I'm not interested in this because I'm no longer running around and tagging people. And to me, that's in some circumstances that it can be the failure of the teacher by not making the content like enjoyable enough and not presenting in a way which is interesting to kids. Because I've come across them before where you have like instructors with like the most amazing knowledge and they have like the best like concepts, principles, and the stuff in their brain is just amazing. However, they're really shit at pushing that content to other people, especially kids. Like, one of the things for me is that you have to understand, in a kids class, they're not going to have the same expectations as you. They come into that class going, I want to have fun, I want to learn a few bits and bobs, but that's not their main driver for the most part. It is in some kids, but the majority of them is, I come here because I enjoy it and I have fun.
Yeah.
Now, as an instructor, I try and make those sessions fun by playing games, by making the content exciting for them. So, we love all the sparring games and stuff, and like, here's your objective, you got to try and take the back, go! Yeah. And then the kids, because they're like, oh yeah, Jack's excited about it, I should be excited about it. And you get a lot of kids that will kind of like, they will naturally funnel into your excitement because they're like, oh, if Jack's enjoying it, I should enjoy it. But likewise, you do get the kids that sometimes go along, and you can tell that I don't enjoy much of this class. I enjoy 10%. I'm not enjoying the 90. Now, for me, if you're not enjoying the 90, this class is not for you.
No, but this is the thing. Like, without running the risk of sounding like we are talking down to the kids, I come to class because I find it fun and enjoyable and exciting.
Yeah.
And I learn something, and that's why I come to class. And if I was only enjoying 10% of the class, I don't think I wouldn't go. I wouldn't spend my own money on it. Like,
sure.
And so I can completely understand this whole this thing of like, it's why I don't say the kid that wants to be here and the kid that doesn't want to be here, because if the kid doesn't want to go to karate, they will not have told mum and dad they want to go to karate.
Sure.
And so this is why I make the very specific distinction of, you see that there are kids that have been told you're going to karate because you need, and again, it's the same tired adages of, you need to learn some discipline, you need to get some self-control, you need to get some self-confidence. And I do see, I've definitely seen kids that you look at them and you go, you are going to be a fucking stellar martial artist.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you decide, this you clearly love this with your whole heart, and that's really good to see. Similarly, for every one of those kids, I've seen a kid who has very clearly been told, you're going to go to karate because £8 a session is much cheaper than getting you through something like an ADHD assessment. And it's kind of, and it's one of those where like this is not me going into, this episode is called "Is there such a thing as a bad student?" Not "Is there such a thing as a bad parent?" That's not what we're here to talk about.
No.
We're not getting. I'm not opening that kind of worms. But it just kind of goes, like I say, it goes to the kind of unfortunate thing of there are bad students who are bad because of the situation. There are bad.
Yeah.
It's almost always kids in the sense of
Generally,
there are
yeah.
kids who have been told by mum and dad, you're misbehaving, you're being naughty at school. We've had reports, so we need to get some discipline into you. So you're going to go do a martial art because a martial art is a disciplined thing. But what they don't understand, probably because they've never done it themselves, is you have to want to be there in order to pick up those traits.
Absolutely.
And B, a martial art does not make you disciplined in the sense of you choosing to go and do the thing every week or every 3 days or however, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, however much you can afford to train. That consistently improves you, and that is what creates discipline.
Yeah, sure.
There's a great quote from a terrible TV show that I heard recently.
Okay.
Which is, it gets easier every day. Doing it every day is the hard part. But it does get easier.
Yeah. I like that.
It's from fucking BoJack Horseman.
Of course. I was waiting for what show it was going to be. Like.
Okay, if you like BoJack Horseman, I'm very impressed that you found your way to 2 dudes bickering about martial arts. That is
this episode is for you.
This isn't a Venn diagram overlap I ever put. I tell you what, go and give us 5 stars on Spotify and say, I love BoJack Horseman. If you love BoJack Horseman, the TV show, I could never get into it. But it's just, that I think is a great piece of mindset to have. Because that, to me, is one of the easiest to understand adages around discipline. It very much goes back to, there's a quote by, I believe, Bruce Lee, but don't quote me on that if it's not Bruce Lee. It's kind of, this is one I've had in my quiver of quotes for at least the last 15 years, and it relates to my personal life, my professional life, my martial arts, everything that I go for that is discipline based. And it's the adage of, it's not about being the best immediately, because that would make you invincible. It's about doing it every day and getting 1% better every day, no matter what. It's about being unstoppable.
Yeah. I really like that.
And I don't think that your mum telling you that you're a naughty little boy and saying, if you don't go to martial arts, we're going to have to take you to a different school, is motivation to become unstoppable.
No,
right?
It's not.
I kind of want to revisit a question just in case.
Okay.
Have you, as an instructor, ever been in a scenario where you've had to sit down with an adult student and say, look, mate, I don't think this is for you. I don't think this is the right environment for you to thrive because of X, Y, and Z factors. And if so, how did you kind of resolve it? Was it just a case of like, cut and dry, cross your hands, I can't have you around this, and I can't recommend you to any other martial arts institutions? Or was it a case of, you don't seem to like what we're doing, you'd love Muay Thai, or you'd love BJJ, or you'd love football, or you'd love rugby? What was your...
Well, so you know what? I don't think I've ever really had to deal with that specifically. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had to towel off adult students, but it's usually...
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and it's always Pat, and it's doing my fucking head in. No, it's usually like older teenage students.
Right.
That, because, they start doing a martial art, they tend to actually really enjoy it, but from my experience, you get the ones that are really committed, and then you get the ones that are kind of like half in it because they think it's just like a bit cool. Maybe they've watched a few videos of, I don't know, fucking Baz Rutten or something like that, and just like gone, this is Baz Rutten. And they're like, yeah, we're going to kick the shit out of some people, and I'm going to be so cool, and it's going to be in 2 weeks, and I'm going to be fucking unstoppable. And they realise that there's actually a lot of hard work in it, and because of that, they're like, I don't want to do the hard work. I'm just going to piss ass about it.
I just want to get to where I'm going.
Exactly. I want to get to the I want to get to the top of the mountain, but I don't want to climb it. And it's, and for that reason, I've had to have a couple of like talks going. Listen, like, you're not spending much of the session actually being productive. Like, is this worthwhile? Like, if it were me, I usually put myself in their shoes and go, listen, like, if this is what you want out of the art, this is what you need to do. And like, if you want to get good at this, you can't spend half your session like chatting away and not actually applying yourself. Like, but the thing that I always say, and for anybody that doesn't know, I've been teaching at my own club for nearly 7 years, but I've been teaching in general for over 10. So I've got a lot of teaching experience, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect teacher by any respect, but I've seen a lot of shit, and I would like to think I'm relatively good at recognising warning signs and recognising different things in people that tell me what sort of commitment they've got to this and what sort of interest they have. And a perfect example of this is I run a couple of sessions at a secondary school where I do a self-defense karate based session. I kind of blend the two. We focus on some of the self-defense aspects. We cover all of the important stuff like awareness, avoidance, de-escalation, threat awareness, all of that kind of stuff. We also go to some of the basic skills, and then the reason I throw karate on there is because we do some sparring based games too, so the guys can have a little bit of fun with the martial art and not just fully self-defense, because I know it can be quite a heavy topic. Anyway, and I also do a teen fitness session. I've been doing these for a long time, and I can tell right at the beginning of the term who the people are going to be good and who the ones that are going to mess around and stuff like that. And you can identify certain behaviours quite quickly, and the main ones are just like kind of like general disregard for anything you're saying. I don't really care what you're saying. You can have a go at me. I'm not really bothered about being here anyway. And like I said, it generally is like kind of like those teenage years, getting to be a bit more like cocksure of myself. Like, oh, don't worry about it, mate. I'm not scared of you anymore. That kind of stuff. And the way that I tend to try and get around it is by doing. So I do my bit, which is, I'm going to try and make you like this. In my deceptive ways, I'm going to try and put you in situations where you're going to start enjoying this.
Yeah.
And for some people, it will flip a switch and they'll be like, oh, you know what, fuck it, he's right. I actually really do like this. And then they begin to kind of like fall into my trap, and I just start bringing them into the martial art world. Or you get the opposite, and it's just kind of like, it doesn't matter what you do, mate, I'm not interested. And that's fine. I think as an instructor, though, I need to jump in and have that conversation with that person, whether it's an adult student, a teenager, whatever, or a kid, and I'm having the conversation with the parent of, do you actually want to be here, and are you willing to put in the work to be here? Because I think that's the kind of crux of it, really. It's your behaviour is a representation of how you feel when you're doing what we're doing. So yeah, I think the adult side of it is more challenging, because there would have to be very specific behaviours that would need to happen in order for me to be like, listen, we need a proper chat. And this was going to be the interesting point that I wanted to kind of bring back to you, Pat. So I've got my opinion on this. I would like to hear yours. What behaviours in adults, not just kids, because we know what kids are like. They run around, shout, scream. I'm not doing that. I'm not joining in with this. Oh, I hate you. You're a rubbish teacher. Okay, what are the kind of behaviours that would warrant a dismissal or warrant being a bad student in an adult student?
I think, I mean, to be fair, it's straight away an unwillingness to engage
Yeah.
because there's to be fair, like, I've definitely trained with some people who are just like there's like an instance of like they'll do the drill, they'll half-ass it a couple of times, and then they'll kind of put their hands on it. It's like, yeah, I get it, and it's kind of like, do you?
Mm.
I'm. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't. At the moment, in the CKS curriculum, I am a green belt. I don't claim to be anything other than a green belt. My previous experience be damned. Right now, I'm training karate. Right now, I'm a green belt. When I'm looking at grades that are almost higher than me, and they're kind of like, it just puts out this attitude of like, I'm not really interested in the bunkai. And even then, because I'm this high grade belt, I can just kind of go like, yeah, okay, I get it. And it's just like, I don't think you do. And your unwillingness to try, I feel, is a big proponent of that. So this is what I mean: the unwillingness to kind of engage and the unwillingness to accept. It's not. This is the thing. It's not even a case of like, yes, I've done that drill once. I'm perfect. It's not even that attitude. I've definitely trained with higher grades in the past, not just in karate, but I've definitely trained with these kinds of people who are just kind of like, say the four aspects of CKS would be, bunkai, sparring, self protection, and fitness. Just off the top of my head, right? Just if you imagine. And then for this example, somebody's like, well, I want to get fit and I want to spar and I want to do good kata, but I don't really care about the bunkai. So every time bunkai is being done in class, which up until a very recent remodel of structuring of classes happened, could have been a whole session.
Yeah.
And these guys would just kind of phone it in. And it's just kind of like, but this is part of what you want to do. Because if you just want to do kata and sparring, go to a sparring club or a kata club. We pride ourselves, I like to think, on being an all-round experience. We try and cover a wide range of the aspects of karate.
Yeah.
And just kind of really indulge in everything the system has to offer, the kind of full buffet.
Yeah, sure.
Rather than focus on the same bowl of rice over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Exactly.
And that is kind of one of my first tenets of just like unwillingness to engage is one of the things that immediately strikes me as like this person is being a bad student. Not they are a bad student.
Yeah.
In this moment, they are being a bad student. And I think that's kind of a weirdly important distinction I just want to tack on. Another example I would have is it's a weird one because it's a case by case basis, right?
Okay.
We all like to have a laugh on the mat. We like to keep the atmosphere up.
Yeah, cool.
Us specifically, CKS is not a club where we're like, class is in session. You must respect your sensei.
No.
There will be no talking on the mat. It's none of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack tried it once, it didn't work. No.
Everyone started bullying me.
Everyone started mocking him. But no, it's a case of like we talk, we laugh, we have a joke. It's jovial. It's a great atmosphere every session, kind of thing, because we're not kind of in that constraint.
Sure.
But when I see people who are being, for lack of a better word, silly,
yeah,
that denotes to me a bad student. Don't get me wrong, I know I'm a bit of a clown. Like, I know I like to make jokes and I like to make the odd little innocuous comment and,
Sure. Yeah.
it's kind of, but that's
there is a level where that's just within the spirit of the club.
That's within the spirit of the club. And I know if I ever got too much, I wouldn't be offended if somebody turned around like Jack's talking. Like, just shut up for now.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know if I ever got to that point, people would like shut me down in a good way, as an example. But it's when you get students who like they make funny noises. They make the cat. They make the wah like to. They kind of to kind of coax themselves through what they're doing. They make noise to drive themselves on. You get you get people who are You get people who are just they act a little bit, I guess, like buffoonishly, and they
Yeah.
kind of dick around. I think is kind of what I'm saying. That is kind of again a bad student, but at the same time, it's like I know that being serious and tensed up and us, I know that that can feel really uncomfortable to some people. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
that's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I totally agree with that analysis because there is definitely like you know you've trained at the club for a long time now and you know that I will have a laugh with the students.
Yeah.
You know, if I know somebody's comfortable to do so, I'll take the piss out of them because I know they would do the same to me, and it happens most classes now. But that for me just keeps everybody light-hearted and realizes that even the instructor's not immune from having a laugh, and I'm not an untouchable force of sensei knows this, can do this. Like I'm happy to admit my faults, and I'm happy to make sure that everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. In my opinion, as to be a good instructor, I shouldn't be like the gold standard. Oh my god, this person is the number one sensei. Everything he does is amazing, and he shits gold. You know what I mean? I don't like that approach, and I think there is a lot of clubs that are like that.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. Before we necessarily like race on from the topic, before anybody races to their keyboards, we're having again the whole point of our podcast. It's a light-hearted conversation.
Yeah,
you asked me what do I think is a bad student. For the sake of not insulting the intelligence of everybody listening, I'm also not going. I'm not going to sit here and make you listen to a list of. Obviously, I'll blast through it. If somebody is being overly aggressive with their training partner or training partners, if somebody is being sexually confrontational to any member of the club, if somebody is using foul language around younger members of the class, or members of the class that might simply not enjoy that foul language as often or as frequently or as pointedly as you're using it, etc., etc. Those kinds of examples make not only a bad student but a bad person. They don't belong in our dojo. They don't belong in our thing. For the brief addendum, they are examples of bad students, but for the sake of our conversation and for the sake of, as I said, not insulting the intelligence of everybody listening, I'm not going to sit here and drag through a list of the obvious.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part to make because, you know, for me, you know, when I look at a bad student, and I think this is, you know, like you say, we could sit here all day and list all the bad things that people do. And funnily enough, there are loads, and some of them I have seen in the club. 100% I've seen in the club.
Yeah.
I think the things that relate more specifically to a student and specifically to the role of a student are the ones that are more important to cover here.
Yeah. And this is kind of why I say like my initial examples were like what seemed like minute things, but it's kind of again where I kind of draw it back to my own example of what's a bad student in the eyes of another student. If you have a drill that doesn't involve going to the ground, like a throw or a grapple or anything like that, and somehow every 1 or 2 repetitions of the drill that you're doing, the other student ends up rolling around on the floor, the first time it's funny. The first time it's, you boofed it, you fell over, isn't that adorable? The second time, it boils my piss. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that might just be a me thing, but it's one of those where, like, if we're throwing or grappling or we're doing ground game, and my partner's on the floor, pat on the back for Pat. He's doing well. He's got the technique. Mm. If we're doing like a kicking sequence, or somebody's doing some kind of other sequence, and it's like you this person lost their balance and is now rolling around on the floor. Don't know how that happens. Accidents happen. You slip on the floor. But it's kind of like if it's every repetition or every other repetition, there's something like that. This overly exaggerated thing happens, and it's kind of this big explosion of laughter. The first time, like I said, it's funny, it's endearing, it's like, you boofed it. We've all slipped.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. It happens the first time. If I know you're doing it on purpose, it boils my piss.
Yeah.
I know that's a really like
It's a very specific.
it's
thing.
a very specific thing, but it's more just a thing of like, because that incident and incidents like it tell me that you don't respect what we're doing,
Sure.
and you don't respect your time or mine. And in the nicest way, I'll be, this is again very personal viewpoint.
Sure. Yeah.
I already have to beg, borrow, and steal for the 90 minutes I come and train with you every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wasting a single one of those minutes balls my piss.
Yeah. I think
very specific thing, and I think it's kind of under the overarching branch of we all like to have fun. I feel so fucking old saying this. We all like to have fun,
but it has to be controlled.
But there's such a thing as too much fun.
No, I know what you mean.
And it's one of those where, like, if you want to roll around on the floor and do cartwheels and shit, there's a great gymnast class that comes on a
Yeah.
There's great gymnast classes in the area. If we're doing a drill that involves me taking you to the floor in a partner drill and you end up on the floor, good, well done me, or well done you if it's your turn to perform the technique. But if it's a case of like you somehow don't possess the fucking bone structure to stay on your feet during a grapple of some description, like what are we doing? What are you doing? Like, how and why did this happen? And it's a case of, I'm using a very specific example from many years ago.
Yeah, sure.
But it's a case of the instances that are just like instances like that are just a case of I like to have fun too.
Yeah.
I also like to learn in equal measure.
Absolutely.
The more and I feel
that's
like
the point, right?
The more the dial is shifting towards fun, the less it's shifting away from me learning. And weirdly, there's another instance of this that is, I find, a little bit more excusable, because I feel sorry for the person in a weird way. But it's when, and we all know somebody like this. We've all trained with somebody like this. But when you do a technique, and you say it's like five moves. It's a case of somebody throws the haymaker, you go in for the cover, you get the hands on, you pull the arm through, you punch.
Yeah.
Very basic European stuff that we've done.
Yeah, sure.
Times. Like, I feel so sorry for the people who will go through that perfectly, but because they didn't step around enough, and there's not enough room for them to do a perfect straight punch to the head, they immediately throw up their hands like, I'm so fucking shit at this! God, why can't I get it right? And it's like, brother, you've been this is your first repetition of this drill.
Yeah.
You need to chill out. And I say that as somebody who, I know a lot of perfectionists. I'm a chef. I know a lot of people who struggle to get these kinds of things down, but like in the nicest way, I've just explained. Yes, I've just walked you through. Like, this is the sequence that's shown in the Peanut Kata. The first, this is the one that's shown in Peanut Showdown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it. I could do it for you right now if we had a camera on. Do I think I've got the perfect one? No. But like, if I look down, like, I didn't get my feet around. I'm not. That's my reaction. Should have been my feet a bit better. I'll get on the next one. Because we're going to do another one. There's no need to be like, oh, I'm so fucking terrible at this. And it's like, it always comes back to just like, and it's like, I remember having a conversation. We did have a student like this come through the dojo a couple of years ago. And like, I missed the lad every day. Really good. Like, he could have been something. That sounds really
he
like...
He could have been someone, man.
He could have been someone, man. But it's just like, no, it's a case of like, young guy, a lot of pent up emotion.
Yeah.
That's kind of, it's an understandable trait to have. But it's that thing of like, I remember having a conversation with him and he's just like, Jack makes it look so effortless. And I'm like, that's because Jack's been doing this 17 years. You haven't been doing this for 17 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that kind of unfortunate mentality of a need to get it right on the first go, in a weird way, makes a bad student. But it makes you a bad student for yourself, in a weird way.
You're not being a bad student for anybody else.
You're not being like it's not a bad student for you to have. It's not a bad student to train with, but it's just like you taking that. If we're going really broad, we're really stretching the definition in the question.
Yeah.
That mentality does make a bad student because you need to just give yourself 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's, if you don't mind, Pat, like, seeing as you did like a list of like the obvious, I'd love to do a list of some of the nuanced ones.
Oh yeah, like,
because I think there are some big ones for me, which I think is the really important ones, and I think we've kind of touched on some of it already. But just so that the viewers and stuff, well, listeners rather, viewers, just watching a blank screen, but the listeners have like a few things to maybe like take away from the thing.
I think in a weird way, like I'm glad I got my ramble out because I'd love to finish on your defined perspective as an instructor.
Because I think so I would say the big one, unwillingness to learn.
Yeah.
Another one is being too what's the word I'm going to use? Too distracted by external stuff to the point where you are being led by other things that you're watching. So what I mean by that is that, as an example, let's say you've done a class of grappling with me, and you've watched one YouTube video from some really obscure channel. You bring that into the class and go, well, this is not how they do it, and this is how. And then you change your entire personality every single time you watch a different YouTube video, and then it affects what you're learning with me, because now you're looking at it like, this new exciting shiny thing is better than what Jack's teaching. And don't get me wrong, there might be some videos that you've watched in there that have been like, oh, that's really good, and it's like genuinely a really good way of doing it, but because of that, you're letting it affect all of the stuff that your instructor's teaching. Or like, as an example, you learn like a guard online and it becomes your personality for 8 weeks. It's one of those things where I think you need to, when you go into any form of dojo, any form of training space, as a good student, you should be like, it kind of ties in with willingness to learn, but it's also understanding that you should be absorbing what this person is trying to teach you. If you have a problem with it, or there's something that you think is better, by all means have that conversation with them, but don't just start changing shit mid-session just because you prefer something else. At the end of the day, like, we've all got our own preferences, but sometimes, learning a principle in a session is what I'm trying to get across. It's not necessarily the perfect example for you, but just go with it. Okay, I think if it's your place to be able to ask questions and say, I don't understand why we're doing it this way. What about this? But if you have a complete disregard for what your instructor's teaching you, and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it my way instead, you're missing the point of what an instructor's there to do for you. Like, my job is to help you and aid you and try and make you a better martial artist. If you're not willing to do what I'm asking you to do, then I think that there can be an issue there. If you see what I mean. I think that was a very complicated way of saying it, and I could have surmised that a little bit more.
I'm following.
Yeah. I think that wasn't very kind of compact. But I think the big one is being, if I was just going to surmise that, then it's being too distracted by external forces, therefore it affects what you're learning in class.
Yeah, I do agree that, like, and to be honest, I've been a victim to it.
Yeah.
Like, I went through a real phase of like, oh, I could see this, and it's kind of like, that kind of weirdly comes in like, do you have enough knowledge to separate what is a good technique on video from what is posturing? Do you have that knowledge together? And that's not a lesson that you can easily teach.
And this is why I mentioned it. I was very careful with my wording, because I didn't want people to take away from this conversation that I'm going, what I teach is the best. Everything you're learning elsewhere is shit. I just mean, if you are if you are watching every single thing on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching on, Facebook, Instagram Reels, as gospel, and then you're coming into class going, if your instructor isn't teaching it that way, therefore they are shit, then you're automatically devaluing.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, exactly. That becomes bad, because then you're never going to find anywhere that's going to be able to be any good for you, because every time you see something new, you're going to be holding your instructor to that standard. Yeah. And I think that becomes problematic.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'd almost feel a little bit insulted if a student came to me and said that in a weird way.
Yeah, no, yeah, so would I. Like, I think we've had it a couple of times where people have said stuff going, why wouldn't I do it this way? I've seen it done this way. And my general response is never like, because it's fucking wrong. 9 times out of 10, they have actually seen something from a good source. And it's been like, okay, fair enough, that is a valid way of doing it. It's not the way I do it. So, funnily enough, to flow on from one of our previous episodes, for the sake of the drill, do it the way that I'm doing it. When you spar it, by all means, play with it yourself. See if your version works under pressure. Because I'm not going to teach your version, because I might not know your version of this drill. That's fine. But to come into a session and go, I'm not going to do it your way, I'm going to do it my way, that's when it becomes problematic, because once again, it ties into an unwillingness to learn, because you're taking somebody else's work and going, they're doing it better than you, therefore I'm going to do it their way. There's a place for that, and that place is sparring. That place is not when your instructor's trying to show you how to drill or show you what a technique is. Here's a technique I'm trying to teach you. You shouldn't be trying to adjust that technique straight away without actually giving it a go. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so.
Right.
Very much so.
Third point, and I think this is probably the most important one, is if you are a student that is affecting the learning of other people. Now, that can come in many forms, and we've kind of discussed some of them today, but the big ones for me are the consenting to stuff in terms of level of sparring, in terms of, are you listening to your partner and are you working with your partner and not against your partner? If you're somebody that is constantly resistant, even when you've got people that are like trying to learn and they're struggling with a technique, and you are not providing them any leeway. So as an example, let's just say we're drilling a technique and your partner's just not getting it, and you are just giving them 100% resistance just to be an asshole, then automatically you're not being a good student for yourself, because you're just making yourself look like all you care about is ego. The other side of that, though, is that you are potentially impacting the learning of another student, because they're spending their entire time worried about the fact that either you're going to hit them too hard or you're going to be fully resistant with them. And for newbies and beginners, that can be quite intimidating. So for me, it's if you are affecting the learning of others and not being respectful of their boundaries and not being respectful of their their comfortability with certain things. So as an example, you've got somebody in that's never grappled before, and maybe they're nervous with even making contact with another human being, and let's just say you've ended up being partnered with somebody. So generally we try and make sure people are slowly built in with an instructor first. If it's their first session grappling, we try and go with them to try and ease them in, so they get like a very light person, or we'll make sure we put them with somebody that we know is competent and we know is a good uki and a good training partner. However, certain circumstances you will end up with somebody that maybe isn't as good at that kind of thing, and because of that, you might have a really bad experience in one of your first weeks, and then you might have, as the bad student, have now put off another student from wanting to come back because you've acted like a bit of an arse.
Yeah, I think that it's almost a case of I don't know how you'd implement this in a way that would be actually effectual and not kind of breed a bad environment. But it's one of those where, like, I know for a fact I've gone to training, and like I touched on it earlier in the episode, but it's like you're driving to class and you're going, I really hope I don't get paired with so and so again.
Yeah.
And the moment that happens, I think it's weirdly, the onus is then on you as as a student to go to the teacher and just go, look, I really want to learn. I don't feel like being paired with so and so is the way I'm gonna learn.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not, and I think it's important that if you're in that situation, you have to understand that the teacher reserves the prerogative to say, I can't never pair you with them again. The teacher has the prerogative to say, you're just gonna have to suck that up for a bit because of the level that you're both at. I don't think it's ever going to be quite as bad as the latter scenario,
Yeah,
but it's more if there are any students out there who are listening and they're going like, I do have a problem with Steve because Steve is too aggressive and Steve will never let me do the technique on him and Steve always hits me too hard. Or if I have a problem with John because John's always knobbing about and I feel like when I'm trying to be serious and actually learn and progress in the drill, he's always dicking around or he's chatting with the students or he's doing this. I feel like it's your prerogative to go to the teacher at that point and you got to say,
yeah,
for the sake of my learning and for the sake of me wanting to progress, I would appreciate it if I didn't get paired with John or Steve.
Yeah.
As often as is possible.
Yeah, I think there is something in that because I think we've got a relatively open learning environment where I would like to think if people were having problems, they would be more than happy to speak to me about it. And don't get me wrong, like some have. I'm not going to go into the details now, but some have,
of course.
have had chats with me about different stuff going on in the club or different things that they've been uncomfortable with or something that happened in a session that they want to talk to me about. And that's, that's fine. And that's how it should be. It should be open. It shouldn't be like, no, this is how the sessions are run. Shut up and get on with it. At the end of the day, if somebody's coming with me with something like that, I need to be a good teacher and go, right, okay, let's sort out this issue firsthand. 9 times out of 10 it's in the kids class and it's, my son doesn't like your son, and then they've fallen out of school and because of that we don't want to partner them up together and they get funny with each other. It's usually that kind of thing. However, there are examples where adult students are going like, this isn't working for me because of this, and I'm thinking, okay, well shit, we need to sort this out then. And sometimes it does take a conversation to go, we need to do something about this in a way which I'm not putting somebody in that bracket of you are just a bad student, therefore you need to get out. Now, there are circumstances where that's true. However, I feel like my job as an instructor is trying to have everybody's interest at heart.
It's worst case scenario.
It's worst case scenario, right? I don't want to kick people out of my club if I don't have to. The way that I look at it is that how can I make sure that everybody is in a good learning environment? And, in certain circumstances, it might be, right, Jack, you need to be more disciplinarian with some of these people if they're pissing about a fair bit. Now, the way that I tend to do that is because it's usually people just talking too much. That's the only issue we ever have in adult sessions for the most part, is people get a bit too chatty. I'm trying to explain the next thing and I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, like, shut up. Like, we're training now. And usually what I do is I just make a bit of a joke of it, say, sorry guys, do you want to shut up the rest of the group? And and then they're kind of like they understand that I'm not being aggressive. I'm not trying to be like authoritarian, but they understand that I've acknowledged the fact that you guys aren't shutting up, and I am aware of it. And usually that is enough for most people to go, oh shit, we better crack on.
We better pack it in.
The other side of that though is that if it's it's an issue with like a student with another student and something has happened, then maybe it is a sit down chat, and maybe it's a like, listen, this has been brought to my attention. You need to either change your behaviour or we're going to have a bit of an issue here. Some of the other times though, and I know this isn't the point of the conversation, but we do have a lot of neurodivergent people that train with us, and because of that, there are certain challenges that come with teaching with that, and that's not the point of this episode. However, sometimes things happen because of misunderstanding or because of maybe not picking up on specific social cues and stuff like that. All of these things that can happen with that whole bag of worms that I don't want to necessarily go into too deeply. But because of that, I've got a duty of care for both of those people. And it might be as simple as I change the way in which I teach or the way in which I form drills or talk about what we're going to be doing. So, a simple ones could be like, okay, because we've had an issue with this, this, and this, I need to make sure I pretext this drill with, remember, guys, no heroes, no assholes, which I love, which is, anybody's being an asshole, call them out for it. And also, if the other person's, also don't be the asshole, right? It's simple things like that, and making sure that your students know that they can make comments to you about other students if needs be, and they can talk to you about it, and they can also have the confidence to set those boundaries first of all with the other students, but also with the instructors. Because sometimes there's such thing as a bad instructor, right? So all of these things, it's all about the kind of like the environment that you're building in your club, and sometimes bad students come from bad teachers, but you shouldn't be in an environment where bad students are allowed to go unchecked. There should be conversations being had when necessary.
I think that's a beautiful point to leave it on. I think very, very in-depth conversation today.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much we actually spoke about. Yeah, there was a lot in there.
Yeah, I think in a weird way, like, well, not necessarily enough for a part 2, but I think we could definitely revisit this.
100%. I think, but there's definitely things I still want to talk about with this subject, but I understand that in this medium there can be such thing as too much information.
So I think if I may, I'd really like to almost leave it on: is there such thing as a bad student? To be continued. In a weird way, because it's such a nuanced topic of you kind of, the amount of times we've kind of gone yes but almost makes me say, almost brings me right back to no, by dint of just elimination. No, there's no such thing as a bad student, because it's all circumstantial. It's all, we're all different. People have their own perspectives.
Every single one of those has been a situational thing that we've talked about.
Every single instance of like, this is a bad student, has come into, this is an entirely situational thing. So it's kind of almost the case of, in a weird way, no, there's no such thing as an outrightly bad student, as long as you understand the specific scenarios or reasoning that makes them a less than perfect student.
If anything, it's less about is there such thing as a bad student, or is there such thing as bad behaviours within your students?
Exactly. Yes, and these are kind of drawn from a wide ranging variation.
Absolutely.
Of different reasonings in different scenarios and different backgrounds, and I think in a weird way, I'd almost like to do the sort of cheap cop out influencer thing of go like, what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Which I'll hold my hands up. It's bold faced and it's cheap and it's lazy, but it's a case of I think realistically we're not going to come up with a satisfactory answer for everybody.
No.
And I think that's the beauty of the conversation.
So for that reason, guys, obviously we'll wrap up the episode there. We're not going to add anything else onto that because it's going to be too much information. But I will say that if you have had experiences yourselves, or there's things that you've noticed in your club, or things that have happened to you at a school or somebody you've trained with and you've been like, not sure about that, leave it in the comments and tell us about it. We'd love to hear about all of your experiences and what you think makes a bad student.
Definitely. Please feel free to contact us via any of the podcast platforms. Shamelessly, I shall once again plug. Please feel free to give us 5 stars, leave a comment that is related to this episode.
Absolutely.
Or simply unrelated, as any interaction does drive us up the charts, allowing us to deliver a bigger and better experience. Alternatively, if you would rather vet your story first, and we'll happily post on the official Armchair Compatives Instagram,
Absolutely.
Feel free to contact us there. You can find me personally at Good Medicine Martial Artist on Instagram. Jack, where can we find the school and your good self?
As you know, you can find me at www.cotswoldkarateschool.com, where there's loads of interesting stuff to potentially have a read through. Other than that, I am also on Instagram under the same handle of Cotswold Karate School. By all means, check out some of the stuff we do. There's plenty of videos on there that show some of our training, but also you can keep up to date with all the seminars that we host and all the other things going on in and around the club.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you very much for listening.
Pleasure as always.